Air India is bolstering its capabilities here. We know that they will be getting at least one aircraft every 6 days. How many do they result in till end of December of 2024?
Big numbers, Shweta. So till end of 2024, 50 new aircraft to be added. So 15 months, 50 new aircraft. On an average, one aircraft a week. But a year, calendar year, has about 52 weeks. So there would be some weeks in which new aircraft may not arrive in India in Air India Express. We're talking about Air India Express specifically. So one aircraft a week, roughly 50 aircraft in the next 15 years, 170 aircraft in the next 5 years. And Air India is saying that it is likely to double its fleet in the next couple of months. So obviously, in a bid to monopolize the skies, where Air India combined is a fairly distant second, despite running 3 full-blown airlines in India right now. IndiGo commands a 63% market share, and cut to the next 3, all being owned by Tata Group, all directly, indirectly connected with Air India. There is Air India, of course, Vistara number 2, Vistara at about 10%. There is Air India at about 9.8%, followed by AirAsia, which is also the AirAsia India operations owned by Tata Group at about 6 odd percent. So overall, a distant second at just about 26% market share with 3 airlines, and now this Air India Express likely to add 170 aircraft in the next 5 years, 1 aircraft a week. I think the fight in Indian skies is going to be a fairly closely contested one. Okay. And we'll have to see if this mighty air power, firepower, engine power of the Tata Group and its investments by buying the government-run Air India and then these multiple aircraft orders that we are seeing both from IndiGo as well as from Air India. And incidentally, even Akasa, a later entrant, a much smaller player, just about 4.2% market share, also saying that triple-digit aircraft order, perhaps 75 orders by by end of this year itself is likely to come through. So overall, one thing is for certain, a lot of cash is being burnt in Indian skies. A lot of new aircraft are going to be taking routes which depart from or land in India. Air India combined, Air India Express also likely to bolster, strengthen its routes into Southeast Asia, South Asia as well as Middle East. So it's not just going to be domestic operations, it's also expansion of India-based, India-owned airlines outside of the shores of the geographies of India. So overall, the aviation space is going to be a very interesting one to watch. But I think what I would closely be looking out for is that can the might of the entire Tata empire take on IndiGo head on and at some stage become the market leader? Honestly speaking, I'm rooting for IndiGo.
All right.
3 cheers to India startups.
Okay.
At 64%, it's practically a monopoly right now. 2/3.
I mean, as of now, yeah. So
at least let's hope a duopoly happens in some
yeah, so
time.
monopoly, maybe not monopoly, maybe too harsh a term right now at 63% also, because I think it's definitely a duopoly, because two bodies or 2 groups controlling about 80% plus of India's skies is definitely a duopoly right now. And we've seen that even Go First being kicked out of the skies did not really make much of a dent. Others have easily taken up that market share of
But hey, all of them
8%.
are, indigenized. They're all India startups. Vistara is India, Air India is India, Air, in fact, Akasa is India. So not just IndiGo there, which is an India startup.
Sure. I think IndiGo had, was one of the early bird startups. The rest of them came from large business families.
Okay.
Even at the time when Kingfisher was flying, Kingfisher came from the Malaya Group. Vistara by Tata Group. Tata incidentally introduced aviation, commercial aviation in India. Air India was launched. The Maharaja was launched by Tata Group. So so hence my rooting for IndiGo, nothing else. I think IndiGo has been a real disruptor, and we've seen the kind of the kind of on-flight service, the kind of on-time services that IndiGo has offered. Hardly any delays, very few cancellations, and managed to remain profitable. Exactly, is something we haven't seen in other airlines.
Margins are wafer thin.
So it should not just be want of capital that knocks off IndiGo from the first position.
And before we move on, what happens to AirAsia? AirAsia has been in news for a while now with pilots issue, with unable to service some of its routes. What's happening with, Akasa, I beg your pardon, right. Akasa. What happens with Akasa, which has been in news recently, lots of issues, pilots leaving for Air India, not being able to service some of its routes. What's happening there?
So I think very simply put, the management commentary, the statements that came from from the management of ACASA said that there are pilots in multiple stages of training, and those trainings periodically would end, and those pilots would come back into the cockpits and would be able to fly aircraft.
So we shouldn't write off ACASA.
I'm not just yet. I think I'm not sure. Eventually, it's a new airline, been in operations for just about a year or so. We will have to give it a slightly longer runway and see how the financial story adds up. Because at 4.2, 4.4, under 5% market share, pilot issues, new aircraft orders, which is of course capex, cash burn. We'll have to look at the financials of the company over a longer runway beyond 1 year or so to see some direction.
So literally give it longer runway.
Some tailwinds or some headwinds will be able to decipher only once we have a longer runway.
But too many issues marring ACASA just
but
at the
every
beginning.
airline for that matter.
Spice isn't a problem.
We've seen aviation is not an easy business to run, not just in India, globally.
Absolutely.
But
IndiGo has got it right for some reason.
Has got it right and has sustained it right for a very long time.